Welcome to the podcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host, Adam Posner.
We are back, and I don't know if you noticed, but we changed locations. It's gotten a little bit greener over here, and that is because we are with our friends over at Smart Recruiters and their newly minted CEO, Rebecca Carr. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
This is fantastic. It's the small touches. I mean, maybe you can see our friends here, Chad and Cheese, who are so nice to lend us their casting couch here. Yeah. But first and foremost, congratulations on the new role.
Thank you.
But you're no stranger to Smart Recruiters.
No.
You've had two stints.
There
was something in the middle over there.
There was. I started at Smart Recruiters in 2014, and this is pre-Smart Recruiters, like the product you knew today, launching. I ran product, built that product up, launched it, ran growth, had some go-to-market roles in there, and in 2021 I left, went to Checker, where I was a chief of staff, and I also was a GM of their fintech product. So they have almost like a startup within a startup, similar to ServiceNow. ServiceNow has Now X. And so they had Checker X. And I started or founded Checker Pay, which is the earned wage access product within Checker before I came back.
Interesting. I want to double back to something that's interesting, because I've had this conversation with folks around the role of a chief of staff.
Oh, yeah. I love this conversation.
And this is fascinating because we have a good friend who does it as well for Live Nation. Shout out, Kim. Katie Kimball, she's awesome. What is the true role of a real chief of staff? I know the answer.
Yeah. So I'd say it is the executive amplifier. That would be the best way to describe it. So I have a chief of staff now, and 50% of her job is to amplify me, to make space so that I don't have to have redundant conversation. So they need to be deeply attuned to the strategy of the business. They need to be an operator at heart. They need to have incredible relationships with my bench. And they need to move all the pieces around up to building the perfect picture so that when I do have a meeting, because I have so many meetings and it's overwhelming at times, I feel like there's good, productive conversation. There's room for a decision in that moment so that things don't have to continue to burn out over time.
So it enables you to scale.
Yeah, that's a good way to say
it. Scale conversations, scale meetings.
But I'd say the other 50% of it is biz ops. So lots of big strategic projects that are very cross-functional that need an owner. And theoretically, the CEO should be the owner, but there's too many to invest the right amount of time in each of them to make them successful. So she is the owner of that.
So you've been in a chief product role, you've been in a chief of staff role, and now CEO, and there's obviously nuances in each one.
Sure.
It's certainly an area of expertise, but coming up into that CEO role, it's a culmination. It's a culmination of experience there. How long have you been with the new title?
So I became the interim
recently.
In March,
and
took the permanent seat in August.
In the last 6 months, what has been your greatest internal challenge that you've been trying to solve?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I think we're at a crux here at Smart Recruiters, at a moment of reinvention. We, I think, had some stagnation in our product roadmap, transparently. I think a lot of people on the floor here have over the last couple of years. And the appointment of a product CEO gives us an opportunity to breathe life back into the strategy and the goal and the problem we really want to solve.
That's what I saw as an outsider.
Yeah. And the problem that we want to solve is we need to make hiring faster and smarter, and it's hard to do that for everyone. So I think bringing focus to our product strategy and figuring out how to aggressively attack a problem space for a group of customers and a customer profile that is really fitting of the existing ecosystem around us, to do that as fast as possible because the urgency is high around solving that problem, takes a little bit of founder energy. You gotta throw, we took our roadmap and we said, you know what, let's start over for a second and rethink what this is gonna be.
So a company that's been around for a long time, and you mentioned being stagnant, how did you have to change maybe the mindset or perspective of the team to say, all right, let's forget this product exists. We're starting from scratch here. Yeah. Give us a little sneak peek into that noodling session.
Oh, yeah.
Sessions.
Well, some of it is just transparency as a CEO. Like, where are we as a business, and what does great look like, and what's our path to greatness? I mean, we're obviously an important resource and vendor to our customers, but we're also a business trying to create value and become successful and grow and be healthy. And I think giving people context on what our goal is, where we need to go, and giving them the opportunity to talk about how we're going to get there, all things on the table, was something we had not done. So we brought our teams together. We had a lot of in-person brainstorming, dialogue, talked about the industry. The good news is a lot of the people that work at Smart Recruiters have been here a long time. Mm-hmm. The executive team has flipped over several times, but I'd say our average tenure in engineering is over 5 years at this point. I mean, it's pretty impressive what you can do.
So they've been around the product, they've been around the industry, and yourself, correct me, keep me straight here. I think you started 2014 at Smart Recruiters. Yeah. So you've seen this company grow, you've seen it become stagnant. Where was that roadblock when we talked about being stagnant? Was it from a technology perspective? Was it from a process paralysis perspective?
Yeah, well, some of it was macro, I'm sure. The pandemic threw a wrench in a bunch of things there. The way that people work is fundamentally changing. Therefore, the things they need from the product is changing. And the product ecosystem, the vendor ecosystem, has been waiting, I think, for the world to say, this is what we need from you. The reality is that technology is accelerated well past recruitment, what recruitment would define as their core needs now.
And what they could use and what they could do real time.
And user expectation is shifting dramatically. And so for me, this moment is about recognizing the urgency around the problem and being a bit bolder. We have all too frequently, the ATS space has invested in incremental improvement, and that's not where we're at now. So, yeah.
What was that big moment during this iteration process? I'm sure there was multiple light bulbs.
There were multiple ones, but
was there a cornerstone one that you decided to build on as the cornerstone?
I think what unlocked it, and maybe you could attribute some of it to me, but also to the bench of people around me. It's just having a bunch of people at the table that actually care, versus just running a P&L. Yeah. I think that we all really genuinely care about each other. We care about our customers. We care about solving the problem, and then saying it is our prerogative to solve the problem. So let's do it and stop just talking about it or finding another channel to sell to a different country in this region or otherwise.
Not expand, but let's focus on making the product better.
Yes.
First and foremost.
And I don't think that operator CEOs that sometimes exist in the space and come in, they have great chops and expertise in running and growing businesses. But this industry is interesting.
Yes.
In that you really do need to have a level of customer empathy and understanding.
It's human business.
It is. It's human resources.
We're not selling stuff to aliens here.
No, and that is, I think, our team getting a bench of people at the table that actually understood that changed the energy and the mindset of the ideas that came to the table. They knew they could stretch themselves. Yeah.
Rebecca, there's a point in my note here that I bolded. Talk about third generation talent.
Yeah.
So let's give a little history lesson.
Sure.
So first generation, is that fax machines and mailing resumes?
You could argue Taleo, but yes.
How do we define the generations?
I think it's about problems we're solving. So first generation, we're solving to organize ourselves, just managing paper, bringing it online. Second generation, war for talent. We need to have candidate engagement. We need to be collaborative. Hiring managers are more engaged in the process. We're mobile now.
Tech.
Lower cost, productized solutions, best of breed. Third generation, does the ATS exist? It's a good question.
Do we need the ATS, or what is next?
What is next?
What is next?
Frankly, I want to go on a petition to get rid of the word ATS because it's so first generation in the way that it's framed.
It's more like management, engagement, and communication, and it's all, and just the tracking is a terrible word for where we're at.
But the reality is the people that are hiring don't want to log into an ATS. And a recruitment process is clunky and rigid in some scenarios. The reality is the person hiring, the person making the critical decision wants hiring to be in their flow of work. They want it to be so easy to consume in the same way that when Apple launched Face ID, you just did it. because it felt like the right thing to do.
Right. It felt natural with human.
It was natural. It met your need. It felt secure. There was no reason not to. Like, hiring should have attributes associated with it that are very similar in the same way that we have consumer tech that you just given to us and we adopt. I think there's a way that you can drive personalization through user experience that we have not had before, largely because a lot of vendors care about the UI.
So let me ask you this: as a leader, you walk the floor here, and at its core, what Smart Recruiters does is not unique from what it's providing. Yeah. Obviously, features, customer service, you have differentiators here. Yeah. But when you walk the floor here, as a practitioner in the space and as also a leader of an organization, not to name names, but what catches your attention from a tech perspective? Or maybe that's pretty cool.
Well, I quite appreciate people that try to be focused in what they're trying to do. There's a lot of big platforms that have gone broad and not very deep. And though I understand why you reach for market share, you're solving maybe a customer problem in one segment or region, it's easy to be pulled in that direction. But I think some of the best tech on this floor are the people that have stayed very true to their ideal customer profile.
They niche down, they focus on it.
And exactly the problem they're doing. So we're sitting on a booth across from Seek Out. They are trying to solve talent attraction and sourcing. And that's what they want to do.
That element of the process.
And it's a hard thing to do.
Of course it is.
But the more that they invest, the more that they double down, the more it works. And I think some of the point solutions and specialists that have done this very well are actually going to be very well positioned in the next 18 to 24 months in a moment of consolidation, because consolidation is going to start to happen. The best tech is going to stand apart. And if you're a little diluted, that's a tricky spot to be in.
You can't be everything to everybody. You'll be nothing to nobody. To everybody. Let's talk about the process. I'm a practitioner. I'm in the trenches recruiter. What, generally speaking, is broken? Is it a pipeline situation now where the fire hose is open from
There's a lot of volume now. Yeah.
Where are the break points right now, and how is Smart Recruiters and your current products solving this? And because there's also less recruiters available. Teams are unfortunately laying off people, and the first to go, unfortunately, are recruiters. If the company's not hiring, first to go are recruiters, which is unfortunate. Also, side note, I don't want to go on my soapbox here, but companies, if you're letting recruiters go, they're great salespeople, they're great customer service. See if there's another role for them within the organization.
One of our,
we have skills, we have people too.
We pulled back on hiring last year at some point. And actually, instead of laying off the recruiters, we have put them in more like SDR and sales support roles.
You probably found some amazing folks.
They're great.
Now wait a minute.
They're
great. I
great.
love what I'm doing.
But also now we're hiring again, and so they can bring them back into the mix, which is fantastic.
But if they don't want to go back.
Yeah, well, if they want to go back. But I mean, as a product, as an offering, I think we're very focused on helping recruiters be more productive as a starting point, because they are doing a lot more with less. There's far few of them. They're seeing incredible inbound of talent, and the tools aren't providing them the screening and scheduling support that they need. So they're being buried in administrative work. They're also having to do things like complete ridiculous job posting forms. It's fascinating to me because we obviously see all of these job templates and job forms that 50, 60, 70 fields on every single one of these things. You're like,
does it really need that?
Yeah, but also they're doing it because they're trying to learn something from watching these jobs exist and be open, closed, hired for over time. The reality is a lot of people analytics platforms can already infer that information without you needing to collect it in a form field or a screening question or otherwise. So productivity is a huge theme for recruiters. And if we can unlock productivity, then they can make more space to do exactly what they need to do, which is be strategic about who we're hiring, why are we hiring, how do we think about talent mapping and succession, how do we make more space to actually connect with people.
The podcast would like to thank HireRoad for supporting this series of episodes recorded live at HR Tech in Las Vegas this September. HireRoad is a leading global provider of HR software driven by People Insight, our best-in-class people analytics solution. People Insight by HireRoad delivers implementation in under 1 week. It's a suite of intuitive dashboard visualizations to make sense of your disparate HR data, and a team of analysts to support you every step of the way. They provide a transparent, cost-effective approach to meet companies where they are at in their people and data journey.
And for more info, please visit hireroad.com/pause, P-O-Z. Thanks.
You're preaching to the choir. You're preaching to the choir here, because when we talk about tech, we're going to talk about, what's the buzzword? Oh yeah, AI. If we haven't talked about that in every interview.
Yeah.
And I say use the tech as a tool and not a crutch. So as a recruiter myself, how am I utilizing tech so I have more time for the human side?
Yeah.
And I always say recruiting is art and science, right?
Yeah.
So if I could use the science, I have more time for the art, more time for the human conversation. And it's fascinating. But what I fear is we've gotten to this point of the AI resume tools that are out there that are taking job descriptions and now taking people's resumes and mashing them up. And now you have the other side with a lot of platforms utilizing AI from a screening perspective.
Yeah.
And now it's just AI to AI versus AI. Yeah. And then you have the bots coming in to talk to this bot. I feel that we're going to go back to more human to make the decision.
We will.
We have to.
We have to. I mean, first of all, the risk associated. So I see 3 outcomes as it relates to AI. Discovery, which is essentially this matching that you're describing, CVs, jobs, like coming together. There's a lot of risk in that, actually, because even though it prevents bias theoretically, like that's how people sell it. The reality is, if you need to consent to being scored and then suddenly you don't consent, so you're not rated, you fall to the bottom of the pile, there is actually a bias because you're not leaning into using something that you didn't want to. So it actually doesn't work that way. I don't think we have figured out how to make recommendation truly effective yet. I don't think there's some people that I think have done it well, but they've done it well because they have deep access to data and they go very, very custom on their integrations. Now,
you're also only as good as your data from an AI perspective.
And that's why. Now, efficiency, productivity, that's easy. That's not decision support. That is your super suit as a recruiter. Someone automating the scheduling of interviews, filling out an offer form, sending out candidates, nurturing candidates based in your CRM based on like public content available on your company. Like all this stuff is very easy for Gen AI to tackle and is very low risk. And then there's one that I think is interesting, which is like insight. How do you learn something from what you're doing? That I think is probably the most powerful.
Do you have an example of what you guys use?
Yeah, so like we have a lot of decentralized hiring.
Oh, I said use guys. I actually just caught myself saying use guys.
Use guys.
I can tell I'm a New Yorker here. From Boston, you get it.
I get it. I haven't broken in my Boston accent yet. But like we have a decentralized hiring is a big workflow within our ecosystem. And there in those worlds, there's all these stores that are out there. And then you have recruiters that actually sit there and they spend their days just figuring out who's going too slow. What a waste of time. Like
don't we have a machine
insight,
for that?
Yeah, like a machine could be like, by the way, store 543 isn't actually logging in and doing anything. You need to go follow up with them first, forget all the others. Like prioritizing, like helping people prioritize the work that they do. That is fascinating. That is interesting. That is powerful and time-saving. But that's insight to me. So efficiency and insight, I think, are easier, lower risk. Discovery is one of those ones where, to your point, the crux is the data. And
a lot of companies don't have it, or it's not accessible, or it's dirty.
Or it's across multiple systems, different taxonomies. Like there's a whole thing there. Now, do I think it will be solved? Of course it will. But there's easier starting points to drive impact. Yeah.
And also not every company and every tool needs to use some kind of machine learning. First of all, machine's been around since the 50s, but like that's a whole other conversation here. But there's simple things companies can do. And I think it starts from a leadership perspective. Most poor processes are because it doesn't come down from the top. Yeah. Hiring is not a priority. They're not saying to their team, our people are critical to the organization so much that you are going to prioritize interviews and you are going to make the time for these interviews. Yeah. I'm going to be conscious because guess what's happening? Yeah. Somebody just left. Now, Adam is doing twice the work. And Adam's not going to be happy if it's taking a really long time. Yeah. So now we lose Adam. Now we're down 3 people. Yeah. When is that finally going to resonate with leadership?
Yeah. Well, that's why I say to folks, lean into productivity, because as a CEO and as my CFO, we need to solve for the problem that we want to grow, we want to innovate, we want to be aggressive. I don't really want to add a lot of people. So the challenge falls back to the user, and there's a good wedge that can be created there. Like what level of productivity can great TA tech bring to your business? There's an easy business case there that actually just requires picking your head up and talking to some vendors about it. We have the data to do that.
Talk to your customers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So we're going to come to the back half of the interview here, but I can't leave without asking for some alpha here. What's on the horizon in Smart Recruiters? What are you guys working on in the Secret Workshop?
Yeah, we've got, I think that 3.0, which you referenced earlier in the conversation, is coming soon. I think in the next month or so, you're going to see some news from us. I mentioned, does the ATS go away? It's a rather bold statement, but at the end of the day, I think the recruiting processes exist today, and the interfaces that exist around it will reduce dramatically. And the way that people engage with recruiting as a hirer will be much more conversational. I think there will be a lot of automation built into that workflow, so there is space for connection. I think you're going to see a lot of ecosystem and specialists integrate into our world so that we can drive impact through that singular conversational interface. But we talk about agent-powered hiring end-to-end. I think there's a real story there.
Agent-powered hiring end-to-end. You heard it here first, folks. What is keeping you up at night as a CEO, the captain of the ship?
Yeah. I think there's maybe two things. One is people are still risk averse here. HR, generally speaking, TA, not necessarily TA, but HR can sometimes be the last mover on some of these things. And right now we need to be a bit of the first mover. And I think pushing customers to really embrace and engage and give feedback and make time for this is something that I'm worried about. We see it in pockets, but not universally enough. And I'm worried that some of those companies are going to fall behind. I'd also just say macro is an interesting, consolidation is a topic in this space. And there's a lot of pressure that many people are getting to move to suite, to maybe divest in best of breed recruiting platforms. And that is because we haven't done a good enough job of building the business case as to why it's so imminently critical. And so I think a lot about content strategy, about education, about how we tell that story through data and impact. Not because I don't think the suites aren't continuing to evolve and might have good tech, but I am solely focused on one problem, and that is recruiting. I'm not thinking necessarily about learning or performance or all these other areas or compensation the way that HCM will. And I think that focus is going to bring faster impact to businesses. And I hope that they lean into that with me versus sort of getting pulled into we need to cut costs. So just use the free module.
I absolutely love you sharing that perspective. That's so informative for everyone out there. And I'd be remiss if I didn't. I love asking senior level leaders this question.
Yeah.
When someone gets to you in the interview process, they have the skill, they have the experience, they've been vetted to some extent. What's their secret Rebecca Carr question to really assess the character?
Question. I ask them, what's the most impactful piece of negative feedback you've ever received about yourself?
Ooh. It's going to show you a few things, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
You'd be shocked how many people say, I can't remember the last time I got negative feedback.
That's bullshit.
Totally. Exactly. But also, I think, tell on how they think about learning. So I got this piece of negative feedback. This is why it had an impact on me. And this is what I did to change it. And how quickly I changed it. That's important.
You said I've conducted over 450 interviews in the last 6 years. And I would say those 450 interviews, probably about 200 plus accomplished seasoned leaders. And it's the same, it's a version of that answer.
Yeah.
I want to know, how did you figure it out?
Yeah.
How did you specifically get to that point?
Yeah.
What did you do?
Yeah.
And that's really what it's all about here. So how do you balance it all? How do you find balance between leading an organization, working mom, balancing home, personal, business, travel? How do you do it?
You love it. You love it. Because if you didn't love it, the stress and it would just
Not worth it.
overwhelm you. It's not worth it. My kids, my husband, first of all, my husband's a blessing, but they see how much I love it. They engage with it. They lean into it. They travel with me sometimes. Your career is, for some people treat their career as just a career. To me, it is my life. It is my passion. It is what I want to do. So it's easy. It's easy to dedicate time to it.
Right. If you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. I mean, I kind of call bullshit on that too, but we'll get there. So last but not least, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
It's been an incredible conversation.
Of course.
Love what you guys are building. I've used it as a practitioner. I mean, Smart Recruiters has been around for a long time. Yeah. And you guys are definitely doing something right there. And you've reached a level of success that a lot of people are striving for, but everyone defines it differently. Rebecca Carr, how do you define success?
Oh, I set my own milestones for what winning looks like, and I'd say I celebrate every win that comes along, and I let them build upon each other. So I don't know if I'll ever find like the fulfillment, like that castle of fulfillment. We've got a tarot card reader over here, and she was talking to me about my castle of fulfillment, and I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I'll ever get there. But it's about celebrating each and every win. I as long as I break it into chunks, I chip away at that success, and I feel good about it my day. But I think for me, my team and my people and how engaged they are and how much they believe in this company is success to me. If they don't feel that, I have failed. Even if we don't, I mean, obviously closing revenue and growing a business is important.
This business
but
goals.
Even if we didn't do that more or less than any one of our competitors, I actually thrive and get a lot of energy and feel success from knowing that a lot of people around me love what they do and love working for me. That's good.
Becca Carr, thank you so much for joining us. Where could folks, Smart Recruiters, definitely check out Smart Recruiters. Where can they connect with you? Where can they learn more?
smartrecruiters.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Reach out. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To join the conversation, search the podcast on LinkedIn. And to catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepodcast.com.